First, the CIA used AI to go after public data, but we didn't speak up because we have nothing to hide. Then the IRS used AI to go after those who didn't pay all their taxes, but we didn't speak up because we pay all our taxes. How can we make sure that AI isn't used in a tyrannical way? Doesn't go against those who speak the truth, the everyday citizens, the journalists. The original quote was from Martin Neimoeller, and it reads as follows. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out, because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. After World War II, after the defeat of Nazi Germany, he was well known for his opposition against Nazi Germany. It's important that we keep an eye for technology that can become tyrannical, not because it's being abused today, but because it can be abused tomorrow. Today, we are facing an unprecedented array of data breaches, hacking attempts, and surges in digital crime. Why is there such a widespread amount, and how little is noticed in our everyday lives? Malware, dark sites, brute forcing, zero-days, script kiddies, and nation-state hackers are all on the rise. Learn more about the threats we face and gain a bit more knowledge than yesterday. Hey everyone, another episode of Exploit Brokers is coming to you now. Hey guys, it's Lauda with Exploit Brokers. Today we're going to be talking about a few articles, specifically about the IRS and the CIA using AI for different things. So let's dive into it. In the first article by Decrypt.co, the title is called, Yes, the CIA is building an AI chatbot. Now, that sounds a bit more ominous, but let's dive into it. The intelligence agency is tapping artificial intelligence to help its agents find needles in rapidly growing haystacks of data. The CIA announced it has begun creating its own AI chatbot, much like the widely popular ChatGPT. Nameless for now, the tool will be trained on publicly available data and aims to help US spies to quickly verify information. Let's break that down. So anyone who has some development skill and interest in AI can easily spin up something like LangChain or a couple different tools. If you have enough resources, say you rent some resources in the cloud, you can try to train or pull up an instance of your own, essentially a GPT equivalent, things like Llama or any of those models. And what the government's trying to do is not necessarily bad. My concern here is, what do they mean by publicly available data? What do they mean by their aim to help quickly verify information? That can easily go from legal and necessary to invasive and unlawful. And the concern is, how do we verify they're using that? How do we make sure that this tool that they're spinning up can be constrained to legal parameters, that it will not violate the American people's privacy? The article also goes on to say that according to Randy Nixon, the CIA's director of open source enterprise, it will be ready soon. Well, how long have they been prepping this? Is this just something that they're deploying overnight? It's the questions I'm curious about. During the interview, Nixon expanded on his views of the current state of technological affairs. We have gone from newspapers and televisions to big data, and it just keeps on going, he said. We have to find the needle in the needle field. What that ultimately means is that the CIA is in the business of finding secrets, in the business of finding intelligence, right? That's in the name, Central Intelligence Agency. And what that generally means is they're trying to find information that they can give troops on the ground, other agencies, government officials, you name it. They are trying to figure out what's going on and how can we leverage that information. Think of it like recon from a cybersecurity perspective. In order to know where you're going to hit your target or what your target's doing, you kind of have to observe them and take in as much information about them as you can. And that's ultimately what the CIA is. There's more nuance to it than that, but that's a pretty easy way to explain. So the part that concerns me is this next part of the article. Type it into the widely acknowledged data collection programs that the US has in place all around the world. Nixon explained that the chatbot will allow officers to analyze large swaths of data. The scale of how much we collect and what we collect on has grown astronomically over the last 80 plus years, so much so that this can be daunting and at times unusable for our consumers, Nixon said. He added, our collection can just continue to grow and grow with no limitations other than how much things cost. Ultimately, what they're saying is the amount of data being collected, and this is kind of true across the board from a technological perspective, the more IoT, mobile devices, computers that come online, the more data is created. You have in the range of, I believe, petabytes being created, and all that's being stored somewhere. Google's data centers are growing massive. Microsoft's data centers are growing even massive. There's an entire problem with data centers and storage. And it's clear the CIA is now hitting that problem. They have a lot of data, and hopefully all legally acquired data, but they have a lot of data that they're trying to sift through. So it makes perfect sense that right now in the age of AI can be used to look through documents and come up with solutions quickly. It makes sense that they're trying to use AI to leverage it. It's why they want to, that I express my opinion that we have to be careful how we tread. We want to make sure that they do follow US privacy laws. Now, and I quote, Nixon tried to assuage concerns claiming the new tool will follow US privacy laws. He didn't provide much information, however, on how the CIA would protect itself against leaks or dubious information finding its way onto the tool. That is one of the major concerns that happens with things like OpenAI's ChatGPT. When you feed it information and it uses that to train onto itself, there is the risk of leaking. There is the risk that the AI will cite or use information that it was trained on that is quote unquote private. Stuff that you didn't want shared and now got shared everywhere. Now, the article also gave me a few interesting links, and I quote, in late August, the US Armed Forces made headlines after reports surfaced that it was racing to deploy thousands of autonomous weapons along with AI air monitoring in the country's capital. The military has also been training AI to handle state secrets and building AI fighter jets. So Decrypt.co has a few other articles speaking on this, and I found it kind of interesting. And one of the ones that I found the most interesting was this one. US military is training AI to give orders and handle state secrets. So what does that mean? Well, imagine trying to get ChatGPT to make decisions based on information you feed it. So you could be saying, hey, given the weather, given my travel plans, when's the best day for me to leave on this vacation? And if you give it enough information, it can probably tell you the best time and day for you to leave on your vacation might be. Say, it knows weather, it knows congestion patterns. It can probably tell you when you can leave to hit the least amount of congestion and the best weather. Fine. What's going on here is the US military is essentially trying to get a intelligent military system or an intelligent military advisor, and it's trying to use that so that way it can make decisions quickly and on the battlefield. There's a quote from the article. It was highly successful. It was very fast. US Air Force Colonel Matthew Strohmeyer, I'm probably butchering that, told Bloomberg, "We are learning that this is possible for us to do." The AI tools, Strohmeyer told Bloomberg, could handle requests that included processing secret level and classified data, which would take humans hours or days to complete in just 10 minutes. Granted, the US military isn't about to hand over control to an AI chatbot, but he told the outlet that the near-term use is possible. Now, the concern for that. You, again, have the perspective that you are relying on an AI to do things that a commander would do. You're relying on an AI to make life and death situations possibly on these situations. So now, not only do we have the CIA trying to look into making AI as part of the workflow, the military is looking at trying to make AI part of the workflow. There's even a concern that's expressed in the article that I also have a concern. In addition to external threats, Strohmeyer says the military is also working with developers to test the trustworthiness of AI due to its habit of hallucinating. So hallucinating is a phenomenon where a large language model, it will make up cited data. It will say, hey, A, B, C, and D are true because of this article in this newspaper or because of this scholarly article that's found here, but that article doesn't exist and that data never existed. It's trying to come up and answer with what it has, so it might infer certain things, but there's no backing it. There's no data that says, hey, this is true. It's not like when you write a paper and you're giving it your cited sources. This is literally, you're just pulling something out of nowhere and saying it's true. That's what the AI is doing. And that has become a bigger and bigger concern for developers, for cybersecurity, for people who work with AI, is how much of this hallucinating. There was even a story about a lawyer, I believe, that not only used ChatGPT to come up with some brief or something like that for a court case, but it turns out that the AI completely made up all the precedents that it used. So the lawyer got in trouble for pulling up AI, and if the court would have actually listened, there's a chance that you would have introduced precedents that don't exist. And at that point, you're falsifying information to get an outcome. And that is one of the biggest concerns. And the same concern here is with the military or the CIA or the IRS or anyone using, and we'll talk about the IRS momentarily, but that's the same concern. If large language models can hallucinate, what's to stop them about hallucinating or getting something wrong when analyzing the data of the American people, when analyzing data from people around the world? For the case of the CIA, what's to stop that data from being misconstrued and confirmed when it's not really confirmed? It hallucinated and said, yes, this is true, when in reality there was nothing backing it up. It just looked like it on paper. And same thing for the military. What if you are given the directive to do some sort of airstrike? What if you're doing a directive to do some sort of forward attack and the AI hallucinated? And now you have the situation where something has happened and the information was completely made up. The whole data was just non-existent. It's not that you had bad intel, it's that the AI lied because it's just a machine. It's just a piece of software. You have to have humans analyzing and understanding. Could we use this as a tool that would definitely benefit us? Yes. Is AI the magic bullet that helps us make everything better? Not really. It is a tool in the toolbox. Just as when computers came out, they helped us land a man on the moon. They will help us advance stuff, but they are not a foolproof 100% perfect thing. They are made by us and they have to be treated with respect and controlled and used as a tool. Now, Decrypt.co also had another article that I found interesting as well that also relates to the original article I was reading. They are deploying AI monitoring in Washington, D.C. The US is so far highlighting defensive, not offensive applications, according to an official announcement on Monday. This includes an AI-enabled airspace monitoring system scheduled to be deployed around Washington, D.C. Using advanced computer vision technology built by non-traditional Defense Department vendor Kaleidoscope, it promises to enhance threat detection capabilities compared to existing 9/11 era systems. So this is where I find AI to be an interesting use case. At that point, you can pull up a possible threat, let an analyst look at it, human eyes, and the human can determine, yes, this is a problem. It's a great way to increase the amount of data that can be processed by the analyst without fatiguing the analyst even more. Now, you do have the problems with like false alarms, the way you do right now with any logging or monitoring system, but the hope is that the AI would have significantly less false alerts. Now, this is useful in the sense where it's not making any decision that can necessarily harm if there is some sort of false flag, or a false alarm. But it gives, I'm hoping, it gives the analyst or whoever's monitoring the, hey, come look at this is important. And then shifts the control back into a human. And there's very little possibility to hallucinate because at this point, it's simply looking at something that's anomalous and telling the user. Granted, even if there is a hallucination, the user will just see, hey, there's nothing going on and move on. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and move on to the IRS. In an article by CNBC, IRS plans to use AI may affect wealthy taxpayers. Here's how. Now, although the article and the IRS have said that, hey, they're only trying to affect wealthy taxpayers, my concern is that anything with AI can hallucinate and can always go awry. Let's dive into the article. The IRS is launching plans with boosted technology and artificial intelligence to collect unpaid taxes from higher earners, partnerships, and large corporations, which could transform tax compliance or spark challenges for the agency, experts say. After past criticisms of low audit rates among the wealthy, the IRS on Friday renewed plans to focus on higher-end enforcement, included expanded use of AI to examine large partnerships such as hedge funds, real estate investors, law firms, and more. This sounds great on the surface. Make sure that everyone is paying the taxes that they owe the government. The concern here is where the next part of this article kicks in. The agency also reshared its promise to not increase audits for Americans making less than $400,000 a year, along with safeguards for low to moderate earners who claim the earned income tax credit and have seen elevated audit rates. That's the part where I'm now concerned. That's the part where I'm kind of wary about this. So the earned income tax credit, I believe, is a tax credit when you earn below a certain amount. You are given the option to take this tax credit when you do your tax return, and it should help you get some money or help you alleviate your tax burden. they've been seeing apparently elevated audit rates, which means that you're having people who are not making anywhere enough to reach that threshold, which is certainly lower than 400,000. And they're getting audited more, even though the IRS has said, hey, we promise we're not going to audit people who make under 400,000. This is a concern because now you're trying to mix AI into the mix. So if their existing systems already had bias where, hey, if you're making this lower amount, you're going to get an increased chance of being audited. Well, now they're just going to increase audit across the board. They want to audit the lower part, they want to audit the higher part, and realistically, you're going to audit the middle part. AI is not a perfect thing. So if they're going to train it on the information they've used, well, they're going to train it on data that simply audits more people. It audits the lower income earners, it audits the higher income earners. And who's to say what those rules or what that AI will detect? What if the AI gains a bias and it just happens to want to audit anyone with the name John or with the name Smith? It's things like that that unfortunately AI is still kind of a black box in certain ways. Yes, there's a lot of software engineering and a lot of developers and AI scientists who are able to kind of understand and visualize it. But at the end of the day, it's applied statistics in a large model. And the more parameters and the bigger the model, the harder it is to really debug and look at everything that's happening. So again, the concern here is, hey, could it be possible that they're going to train this AI and it's going to start auditing more people and it's still going to miss the whole goal of this, which was to increase compliance against the people who make a lot of money and don't pay enough of their taxes? Are they going to be creating a burden on lower income earners who don't have the resources to call up an attorney or call up someone to help them? Are they going to be hurting the middle class who's already being squeezed by increased taxes and inflation and things like that? So will this AI be counterproductive in the sense that they're going to audit, they're not going to make more money from it, or they're going to make marginal amount of money, but now they're going to be hurting more people who are already pretty stressed out trying to make their tax return? As far as I'm aware, everyone's stressed about trying to make their tax return. It's a very stressful endeavor. It's a very complex endeavor. So adding AI to the mix could potentially increase the problems that occur. And the part that I also found that was reported on CNBC that I totally agree is the pressure that's going to be put on the IRS when they roll this out, which means anything pushed out in a hurry always has a higher risk for problems. There's obviously pressure on the administration to show results, especially with the 2024 presidential election approaching amid continued scrutiny of the IRS funding. They're going to press for getting those points on the board, Everson said, but at the same time, they can't afford a big mistake here. This is the problem. They are under pressure, and anyone who's ever delivered a product or had deadlines know that when you're under pressure, when you have a big thing and you are expected to deliver, there will be corners that get cut, there will be things that are not double check and triple check the way they should, and this is where more problems, especially considering AI is still very new, will crop up, and you have a high risk for things going wrong. My concern here is how much of this will go off the deep end. How much of this will slowly push us to more problems that are coming up where AI should be helping us. It's going to be being used in a manner that could potentially go completely the opposite way. Last thing you want is to get audited every single time because your name's John or Smith. The last thing you want is for the CIA to start tracking a bunch of data and the AI can now essentially leak information. Oops, it happened to look at all the publicly available data and now it has that knowledge. There's no way to really expunge it. There's no way to pull it out. There's some requests that can be made for your data to be pulled out of a system, right? But with AI, that becomes so much more difficult than just deleting a record from a database. Now the AI that learned it, I don't really think you can make it unlearn without possibly degrading the performance of the whole model. It's not just a record in the database, it's an entire model, an entire network of connections. This is definitely something for us to keep an eye on, considering that the IRS affects not only people's pocketbooks, but the CIA could affect people's freedoms and people's livelihoods and everything in between. Guys, this has been Louder with Exploit Brokers. I want to thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.